Now we will start the keynote speech. First of all, let's welcome Ma Jun, Chairman of China GFA, to talk to us about the development of green finance in the GBA and also our cooperation in green financial sector. A big thank you again to the invitation of the host, so I have the opportunity to share with you the recent progress of green finance in China and also in the world, and also what we can do in this regard in the GBA. So in terms of international cooperation, I would like to say a few words about China's green finance. First of all, actually 6 to 7 years ago, that is still a niche market. No one talks about it. But in the recent years, we've already seen 5 major frameworks coming out. And also the standards for the green bond, green credit, and also a catalog for green industries have already been put forward. The recent progress in the green catalog is a document issued by PBOC for the green bond opinion solicitation. And also, we've seen a major modification in that catalog that has invited very good feedback internationally. And that is a major measure taken by China to address climate change as recognized by the international society. And the second pillar, environmental information disclosure, we've seen some recent progress. The Environment Protection Ministry has issued the regulations for mandatory environmental information disclosure, and a few years ago, this roadmap has already been issued to set up mandatory information disclosure for certain industries and companies. And this, by the end of this year, CSRC and also Environmental Ministry is going to code issue mandatory requirements for the relevant companies, especially listed companies, and they need to get ready for the upcoming regulation, because a lot of capacity building needs to be done if you want to become compliant. And also, I'd like to talk about incentive schemes. Some green projects, they have a good environmental benefits, but not very good economic benefits. So it is not very attractive to private capital. So the government, the central banks, and the authorities needs to come up with incentive schemes so the equity investors and private investors can see the good return in those projects. A few years ago, a central bank has issued the many measures, including, for example, if the commercial bank has the green projects on their balance sheet, they can get the financial support from the central bank. And also in 8 cities in 6 provinces in China, local incentive schemes have been issued by the local government, and also subsidies has been provided for the identification of green bonds as well. In terms of products, up until now, the green credit of the large banks reach about 12 trillion. And if we add up those of the smaller banks, that number is going to become 13 trillion. And now China has issued about 1.2 trillion yuan of green bonds domestically, and that is actually leading the world. And now we are seeing over 700 green bonds, green funds in China, and also other products like green ABS and REITs for green infrastructure, the blockchain and green asset trading and transaction are also seeing progress.
Lastly, I would like to recommend you to do some pilot projects in different regions. Why do we need the pilot projects and why do we need them in different regions and parts of the country? Because China is a large country and there are specific local conditions in different cities, in different regions. Therefore, we need an array of different pilot projects to find appropriate paths for local development of green finance. For instance, we've seen very good e-platform supported and driven innovations in Huzhou for green financial products. This project's best practices has been very well rolled out in some of the regions. For instance, an innovation product that features the connect of bonds and liabilities for green infrastructure is a case in point. There are also other innovations in leveraging carbon emission permits for financial products innovation. Different parts of the country have their own condition, namely they are at different stages of building green economy. Therefore, they have their local targets in terms of carbon neutral, carbon negative, or simply reduce the carbon emission. Therefore, we can launch different innovative products to suit their targets. Fourthly, what I like to say is the concerted efforts and a platform or a mechanism to support that synergy, such as GFA in GBA. We have seen other good practices, such as concerted efforts made in building an alliance on the regulatory work of financial sector. For instance, I am a member that's been in the working group of regulatory issues related to green finance. And this year, we are going to issue two important documents. One is the green finance environmental risk analysis. Another one is also related to green finance environmental risks and its mitigation. Why do we need such documents? Because in the past, when we develop a green finance, we focus on capital and fundraising. But now we should also focus on the risk mitigation and the bettering of a financial environment that is risk appropriate or risk reasonable for green finance. For instance, in recent time, we built a model to analyze the risks of, for instance, a green financial institution in offering loans to a green infrastructure project. And from the simulated calculation based on this model, the results has been greatly improved. Therefore, the green finance and related projects are exposed to higher risks because of the change of the environment, the change of the macroeconomic environment. For instance, clean energy, according to the projections, in 2030, clean energy generated electricity will experience a good cost-effectiveness improvement. Namely, electricity generated by green materials will be even more competitive against fossil fuel-generated power because of the lower prices. And that means the financial support to, for instance, coal power plants will be higher and duly adjusted in a time frame of 10 or even 20 years. So we need to take into consideration risk analysis and their mitigations for development of financial support to green projects and put it in perspective against its risks of non-green projects. We also establish alliances of other kinds, for instance, standards formulation. We are already on our way. We are one of the initiatives for the formulation of standard of sustainable green finance terms and terminology. Another initiative of the kind is the working group on China-EU financial standards formulation. I am sitting as the chair of China's working group so that we can promote the harmonization of standards between China and EU in order to better support the cross-border green finance development between China and EU. So, for instance, if the green bonds standards between China and EU can be further harmonized, then we can issue, the financial institutions can issue the green bonds without repetitive certification so as to relieve their burden. For GBA, what can we do? Including what GFA in GBA can do. I'd like to share with you 4 perspectives of my own. Number 1, cross-border green finance businesses can be further facilitated by GBA GFA. Guangdong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou are the regions that are at the forefront of internationalization. And Hong Kong and Macau is very well endowed with its harmonization and synergy of the international market. So we can leverage such advantage for the cross-border issuance of bonds. And there are very good motivation and incentives that are already available in Hong Kong and Macau to further attract the issuance of green bonds into Hong Kong and Macau SAR. Second is a cross-border carbon emission related markets and financial products. We have a China emission exchange in Shenzhen and in Guangzhou already, but Hong Kong and Macau can also leverage the China carbon emission exchange in Shenzhen and Guangzhou to build a much larger carbon emission exchange market in this region. It can also leverage the close connectivity of Hong Kong and Macau with the international carbon emission markets to further bridge mainland China's carbon emission market with the international market. So this is what I call as a carbon connect. We can first build the connectivity between Guangdong and Hong Kong and Macau in the carbon emission exchange, and then further roll it out to build a connectivity between China and the international carbon market. In addition to that, in terms of cross-border transaction and trading, I have another idea, that is green ABS businesses of cross-border market. Why do we mention ABS in particular? Because China has a very huge amount of green credits, but there's a lack of liquidity of such huge green credits within China, which is a barrier for foreign financial institutions to leverage and benefit from this huge ABS credits in China. So if we can facilitate the cross-border transaction and trading of ABS between China and international institutions, we can further facilitate the cross-border businesses. We can do it in 2 ways. On the one hand, we can attract more financial institutions into GBA for better leverage and utilization of ABS. In China, it also offers a platform and channel for us to issue or sell ABS products in international markets. All these will provide great convenience for ABS products and market. Another point I'd like to mention is to leverage green and digital technology in Gba Gfa. For instance, in the China Society for Finance and Banking, we have dedicated working group on leveraging digital technologies such as blockchain for further facilitation of financial and banking and insurance products. We can also leverage the blockchain to further facilitate green infrastructure, such as leveraging blockchain to support photovoltaic projects. It can be designed and fine-tuned as a sort of investment product and put it into the blockchain technology platform for us to better identify the environmental status quo and the impact of global warming on specific regions. We can also put it into a simulation with a sandbox so that we can have a better analysis and insights of related projects. Another one is to leverage digital technology to facilitate individuals in their engagement in carbon emission markets and exchange products. Right now, it's major or it's only institutions that are allowed to get engaged in the carbon emission exchange. But in the future, we can leverage technologies to integrate the technological infrastructure and platform of institution trading with individual trading so that individuals can also be made eligible and possible to get engaged in businesses or transactions of carbon emission exchange. Third idea of myself is to support the green supply chain with green finance. For instance, Guangzhou Automobile has been a very good role model. We are studying the case of Guangxi Automobile GAC. They have some suppliers who supply auto parts and components for the manufacturing of a vehicle of GAC, and we can leverage green finance product to further support the vendors, the supply chain of Guangzhou Automobile Group, so that their supply chain can be even more sustainable with the help of green finance products. For instance, these products will help the vendors to bring down the cost in their efforts of sustainable development. It can also provide better liquidity and finance to the businesses so that they can become qualified vendors of large companies like Guangzhou Automobile Group. Fourthly, I think we can formulate some of the task forces on enhancing financial support to waste disposal and treatment. For instance, we already established a demonstration project leveraging green finance products to support the solid waste treatment and disposal projects. For instance, some of the companies have their expertise and facilities in place to support the green treatment of construction solid waste, while other vendors are better in treatment of solid waste of other kinds in a green manner. So we need to pull them together via a trading platform so that we can leverage the expertise of different vendors in treating solid waste of various kinds with their expertise and technologies and hardware facilities. We also work together with our counterparts, for instance in Hong Kong, for the renovation and upgrading of construction solid waste treatment plants, offering them green financial products to relieve the burden and to speed up their transformation in upgrading the facilities to treat and dispose construction solid waste in a sustainable manner. So all these examples have been in progress. So I'd like to take the opportunity to call upon everyone here to get engaged in this effort so that we can work together to find new areas of innovation, to translate expertise and advantages of various stakeholders into concerted efforts with the help of Gba Gfa. And lastly, I wish the conference great success. Thank you very much.
非常感谢
Thank you, Director Ma, for your very informative and enlightening speech. What he said is highly significant to our future work in developing green finance. So a request for Director Ma. So would you mind if we've organized what you said into a file so that we can hand it out to all the participants to learn? Okay, now, so we are having a tea break. You can enjoy the refreshments and drinks outside. So we'll resume our keynote speech session. I'd like to give the floor to Liu Fan, Vice President of CCDC. The topic of his presentation is promoting the development of green bonds in the Greater Bay Area with green substance.
非常荣幸啊，有在咱们这个首先祝贺联盟。
What an honor. I'm thrilled by the launch of Gba Gfa, and I'm eager to contribute to this alliance by presenting to you what we have done to facilitate green bond development, and also some of the trials that we've conducted here together with Guangzhou. So topic, what is this green substance, or let me put it the other way, unlabeled but actually green bonds. I've already sent you the digital version of the slides. So first of all, a few words of our company. It is known as CCDC in short, and the full name is China Central Depository and Clearing Co. Limited. So our mission is to provide services, backstage and also front stage services for green bonds on the bond market. And as you can see, some smaller Western countries, they actually put bonds and the stocks together. They do not separate them. And actually, in the CCDC and also the China Depository and Stock, that is where you actually put your stock on custody. And in China, the stocks and the bonds are actually separated. In the 1990s, Premier Zhu Rongji said, usually people would think that the stock market is the most risky one. But in the end, the bond market is the most problematic. How is that? So at that time, the security companies and the service department of the treasury bonds, all these bodies can actually put the debts in custody. When the clearing happens, there were a lot of fake bonds that has been discovered, and that was why Premier Zhu Rongji asked our company CCDC to put the bonds in custody and management. So we were established in 1996 with the approval of a State Council under the leadership of PBOC and the Ministry of Finance. The building of a new system must start with a top-level design. So we visited the US, Germany, Australia, and also Hong Kong SAR to learn from their methods and approaches of custodial bonds. And then we wrote a report to PBOC. And we've also invited the international specialists from the US, from Spain, and also from the International Monetary Fund. And we found out that actually we need one specific body to manage, to provide a backstage management for these bonds. And now we are managing over 10 billion yuan of bonds. That put us the second in the world, the second largest in the world. We've also established a subsidiary company to hold part of the bonds in custody, about 1/3 actually. And now CCDC is holding 2/3 of the bonds in custody. Therefore, within this system, as you can see, we have a very good stock market with the market valuation at about over 10 billion or something. But the bond market, in the bond market all over the world, basically they are being held by the institutional investors, and there are 3,000 to 4,000 institutional members, institutional investors, and actually the money that they are using are collected from the individual investors, and then they become the legal bodies, and the legal entities are reached about 3,000 to 4,000 who can directly purchase the treasury bonds. And now we are seeing a small percentage of individual investors as well, but still the majority is institutional investors. And that is why the bond market is not quite in the spotlight. The everyday transaction value ranged from 4 trillion to 6 trillion. About 10,000 are the spot tradings. And when we look at the role of the bond market in our financial system, as you can see, we have a Chinese bond market operation platform, and also the macro policy implementation platform. And the bonds, especially government bonds, can be used as collaterals and pledge. And the monetary policies and the financial policies are also receiving more focus in our operation. Now the local government debt reached about 2.5 billion. That is a rough number. So this is where the monetary policies and the financial policies are also put in practice. And the Central Bank of the PBOC issued a white book for the benchmark pricing in the financial market. So yes, we do have the benchmark in the RRPR. The financial market is huge, and now we are seeing many other benchmarking curves, which are, I don't know, quite professional, and there are some terminologies that I would mention. They are actually the same as the deposits. The only difference between them is the liquidity. So this interest rate that is formed is connected with the financial market as well. And actually, a poor liquidity, and if you add in the elements of liquidity, you're seeing this huge transaction volume that is much bigger than the stock market when we look at the bond market. And now we have a deposit of 100,000 bonds, but actually only 1/10 of them are being traded. So that is why we need the interest rate curve according to international standard, we need this market to market, and we need to do a simulation of the market value. And we have a specialized team doing that based on about 10 trillion, and we can give a simulation of 9 trillion or something like that. So the 3-year treasury bond, there are about 20 to 30 such bonds, and if I can know the pricing of one of them, then I can actually simulate and estimate the pricing of the rest. So every day we are simulating these curves, and then also we can estimate the credit ratings. For example, for the 3A rating, what might be the interest rate, and we can do it all the way from 3A to 2C. And every day the bond default volume will be as high as 100 million. So we can actually estimate their residual value and wait for somebody to do an NPL purchase. So actually, based on the monetary policy and also market risk and also the industry policies, we can do a lot of estimations and simulations. So that's how this benchmark pricing platform works. And just now we've heard from the representatives from Guangzhou and Shenzhen, and also we've been discussing this with the governors of the banks in Guangzhou and Shenzhen. Okay, so I'm sorry, I've been dragging for so long on this single slide. So moving on, Director Ma was also talking about the same thing, the unlabeled green bonds. And because of this immature credit system and low level of professionalism, we do witness very low labeling rates of the green bonds. And now we are having this new mechanism for identification of green bonds, joined by PBOC and also CSRC. They can, they can ask the third-party institution to give them the identification, and the regulatory bodies will do the assessment and the final approval. But now a lot of companies will find this mechanism too troublesome, so they are unwilling to do the certification. So yes, we've issued over 1 trillion of green bonds, as Director Ma put it. However, when we are working together with some green central corporations, we discovered a major gap in the market that we've been doing green finance for so long, but the companies haven't gained profits from it. They simply regard it as a social responsibility. So actually 2/3 of the companies who have issued green bonds or actually green have not applied for the certification or identification. Therefore, we are seeing this large number of unlabeled green bonds. So in order to address that issue, we've established this system to identify these green companies or green bonds based on their issuance information. Since Guangzhou is the state-level green financial reform pilot zone, we've talked with the Guangzhou Municipal Financial Regulatory Bureau, and the leaders have agreed to establish a pilot project. And yesterday, I went to Huadu district in Guangzhou, and we have a seminar together, and also we've done quite a few investigations, and we learned a great deal. And this is a very interesting page. As you can see, that is the labeled green bonds recognized by the official bodies. And you see the ratio in the GBA is 1:3, labeled versus unlabeled. And that situation is actually, quite similar all over China. So these projects have not been entitled to all the preferential policies or tax cuts of the government because they haven't applied for the identification. So that is something quite interesting and needs to be addressed properly.
实验了啊。
So we have turned it into a pilot project. For instance, at the official website, we issued the standards for labeling green bonds, so that green bonds can be it can be easier and more convenient for the certification of green bonds. And here, by formulating those indexes for certification and make it transparent and available to the public, then it will be much easier for the companies and for certification bodies to certify green bonds in a much easier way. And this will help us to ramp up the labeling of substantial projects, substantial green bonds. So here we also make it public to the society those certified green bonds for sort of a double check by the society. So here, this is a list of substantial green bonds, and then the list is made available at the official website to the public for the public to confirm and to monitor whether these are real and substantial green bonds. So we, on the one hand, make the standards transparent and available, relieve the burden of certification, and in the meantime, we put up or post a list of those substantial green bonds projects in the website so that the society get to see what are the substantial green bonds. So we hope that Guangzhou can be a pilot city for this project. For instance, there's a company that has this substantial green bond, and then you report it to, and we download it from a relevant database and data source, and make this list of substantial green bonds in Guangzhou available to the public. And this system is actually a system that draws inspiration from international usual practices. So we put the list on the website, and for instance, we set up a time frame of 6 months for complaints. See if we get any complaints of those enlisted substantial green bonds. So this is actually a channel for public supervision, so that the public, the society, get to supervise and get to complain whether these projects are truly and generally green bonds projects or green projects. But of course, we'll have to set up a time frame for that. I think half a year is a reasonable time frame. Now, if we didn't get any complaint of those listed projects in 6 months, then we can label them as green bonds and projects and offer them relative incentives and motivation. That's what I'd like to share with you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vice General Manager Liu Fan. Now I'd like to invite Madam Ying Hong, Deputy Director, Urban Finance and Research Institute, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, to speak to us via video conferencing. Distinguished leaders, distinguished guests, hello to you all. It is my great pleasure to attend the inaugural meeting of Gba Gfa. What I'd like to share with you is the green financial product as an important support for green economic development. A table of content for my presentation: the significance of Gba Gfa, second, the practices of ICBC, and thirdly, some personal suggestions. Now, firstly, let's look at the significance of Gba Gfa. I think the central government of China has made it very clear that GBA is of great significance for the development of the economy in this country. It also formulated the development plan, the outlined development plan for the development of the GBA in February of 2019. And in this outlined development, there are several major projects identified, together with 5 strategic positioning of GBA. It also specified some of the specific initiatives and actions to be taken to further facilitate GBA's development. And part of the initiative is to further enhance the financial support to further the construction of the GBA, as well as promoting ecological civilization and its development. So I think these two can be very well integrated, leveraging financial support, especially green financial products, to better support economic development in an ecological friendly and sustainable manner. There are some advantages and strengths of GBA. For instance, this is an area that is very well grounded with economic foundation. So these are some of the major key indexes of economic status quo in this Greater Bay Area, in Guangdong, Hong Kong and Macau. And if we try to benchmark that with some of the other major GBAs in the world, it is in the medium or upper medium ranking. So all these indexes further boost our confidence in further developing GBA. For instance, if you look at patent filing, this area is ranking quite among the top in terms of total cases filed for patents. Another one is R&D proportion in GDP. In this particular index, Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area slightly lags behind their counterparts, the other 3 major GBAs in the world. So you see that we do have very well conditions to build this region into a Greater Bay Area. If we look at the fundamental prerequisites for building a GBA, it features the following 4 conditions. Number 1 is the free flow of important elements of economic development, such as human resources, capital resources, information, and products. Second prerequisite is the translation of scientific and technological research findings into specific projects, meaning that it is home to a certain number of institutions, higher educational institutions, research institutes, and innovation-driven businesses. Another prerequisite is to have a sophisticated and mature financial market and advanced financial center. And the last prerequisite is to be driven by some macroeconomic development policies, such as Industrial Revolution or the policies formulated by the government to facilitate its development. I think the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area have been very well endowed with these 4 universal prerequisites for developing a GBA-driven economy. The second advantage of this region is illustrated with its green finance. Green finance in Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area is a big strength. According to the statistics, as of the end of 2019, the fund raised via green finance debt products have registered 1.5 trillion RMB. This is among the leaders in this country. Some other specific examples can be found in the total number of 141 green bonds issued in the 9 cities in GBA area, and its leadership in ESG information disclosure and connectivity with Hong Kong Stock Exchange, to name just a few. Another strength of Guangdong-Hong Kong Macau Greater Bay Area is its role as avant-garde and role model to facilitate the development of peripheral regions. For instance, in green finance and green economic development in particular, it is quite leading in terms of formulation of green standards, innovation of green technology, innovation of green financial products, and transformation of industries so that industries can be further upgraded into sustainable and green industries. So I think this area is quite advantageous and has been a leader in the above mentioned 4 areas. Let's take a look at the green financial products innovation as an example. With the promotion of the Belt and Road Initiative, we have seen an array of different innovations in business models, in two-way investment, in financing channels, in insurance products, in risks mitigation of various credits and loans products. All these have further amplified the advantage, the strength of Guangdong-Hong Kong Macau Greater Bay Area. Now, the second part of my presentation will focus on the practices of ICBC in offering better financial support for green development. Well, if we look at the GBA area, it is an area that ICBC has more than 100 branches and offices, meaning that ICBC is quite active in terms of its footprint and activities in this region. We also see very big contribution of GBA area in terms of the profits of ICBC nationwide. Namely, it accounts for 45% of the total profits of ICBC in this country. In terms of the loan, it also accounts for 14.3% of the total of ICBC in China. So all these figures have further illustrates the important contribution and role of GBA for the business of ICBC. We also try to further enhance our businesses in this area to better support GBA development. For instance, we establish an organizational structure that features the leadership of Guangdong branch of ICBC and the coordination and synergy of various branches in this region, including our branch in Shenzhen, in Hong Kong, and in Macau. So from the perspective of organizational structure, it lays a solid foundation for leveraging the synergy in this region. Second effort made by ICBC is to improve our mechanism of management so that we can offer a good we can better safeguard the development of the GBA and our financial services in this region. For instance, we formulated special policies on credit and loan granting, the IT system, the human resources to tailor-make that with the need and condition of a GBA. Specific measures can be seen in the optimization of credit and loan approval and granting procedure, the enhance and upgrading of technology and IT system to support technology-driven and data-driven business models, and the analytics driven by data insights, as well as research capabilities, so that we can have better understanding of the area and come up with better products and services to suit the need of this region. And that leads to the third initiative, that is innovation in products. So we have launched a number of innovative products, for instance, payment connectivity, featuring payment connectivity, financing connectivity in this region. Well, if we look at green finance in particular, for ICBC, our number one achievement is very fast growth of green finance products and business revenue in this region. As of the end of December of 2019, the green credit balance of ICBC in this region registered 135 billion RMB, an increase of 9.14%. That is a very impressive progress. Second particular achievement is international cooperation.
We've signed the UIPFI, Responsible Bank Agreement, and also the GIP, Belt and Road Green Investment Principle. At the same time, we are also one of the leading units in the making the regulation for the green finance. We've also formulated a 3-year action plan, as well as the framework for information disclosure, and we are actively pushing the pilot bodies to participate in those projects. In terms of pressure test, the rating index, and also statistics compilations, with the leadership of GFC and Director Ma, we've already conducted some projects, and our research on stress test is also leading the industry. So for all those projects and programs that are already ongoing, we will carry them forward in the future, and also we are going to transform what we have learned into practice and productivity by closer cooperation with the industries. And regarding our future work, we are going to conduct innovation pilot points in green finance, and also we are going to innovate our products as well as the services, and also we are going to encourage the financial institutions to do that as well. And thirdly, we are going to facilitate cross-border green financial cooperation. We hope that some incentive and regulatory regulations can be piloted in the GBA, and at the same time we hope to see more special innovation in the financial products and services. And also we are going to explore the mandatory EIG information disclosure models. So, and at the same time, we are going to harmonize the standards of green finance in this sector. And speaking of product and service innovation, we hope to encourage more financial institutions to establish green financial departments, green branches, and green finance innovation centers here. We are also going to encourage the green PE and the VC, and to establish high-quality carbon emission permit trading market. And last but not least, we are going to encourage the innovation in products, green infrastructure, green buildings, green supply chain, green consumption, and green tech. And regarding cross-border green financial cooperation, we hope to help establish a cooperation mechanism engaged by both the government and also the private sector. And also we want to strengthen our communication with the academia in terms of stress test and information disclosure mechanism building. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. I hope we'll have more opportunities to exchange ideas and learn from each other. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Yin Hong. Now we are moving forward to the display of green project results. The first speaker in this session is Meng, Secretary General of Guangdong-GFC and President of China Missions Exchange Guangzhou, who is going to present to us the Green Supply Chain Financing Action Guide and some of the results achieved. Thank you. Thank you, Director Nie. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm excited to be here, and I'm thrilled to witness the inaugural launch of Gba Gfa. The Guangzhou GFC, as one of the organizers of this event, we feel very honored to have been working together with our counterparts in Hong Kong and Macau to make this happen. So on behalf of Guangzhou GFC, I would like to tell you about what we have done in facilitating green finance in the past year. First of all, I wish to present to you our observations of green finance and the status quo here. And since the issuance of the guide for green finance, we are seeing a lot of emerging sectors like clean production, new energy, and also energy conservation industries booming. At the same time, we are also seeing more greening traditional industries, and these industries provide lots of jobs, and they are actually the basis for the market and the economic development. And we also discovered that in the transformation of these traditional industries, there are quite a lot of prominent issues. For example, the mismatch between the standards and between their industries and also the financial industries. We are seeing some industry-based regulations and requirements being issued. However, in terms of green finance, a lot still needs to be done to help green finance enable and empower the real economy. So, under the guidance of Director Ma, the Guangdong GFC has undertaken this project in the hope that green finance can empower the real economy and support its future growth and transformation. So as we can see in the Po River Delta, this key area of GBA, there is a lot of potential in greening the traditional industries. In the Po River Delta, the manufacturing industry actually contribute 1/3 to its GDP. So there is huge potential for green finance to tap into, like telecommunication, computing, and electronics, as well as manufacturing. If these industries become greener, and if they can leverage all the opportunities provided by green finance, then we have a very bright future ahead of us. So we have launched the Green Finance Guidebook with a purpose to give more support to the real economy. So after thorough investigation, we've discovered quite a few issues in the green supply chain finance. For example, the risks in the management and higher risk because the financial institutions need to face a lot of suppliers themselves, and also the mismatch of standards that I just talked about, and also the very limited coverage of green finance in the real economy. And you see, it's mostly the downstream customers are simply purchasing the green financial products or to finance for their equipments, and we need to broaden the scope of application of green finance in that. And today I want to tell you about this green Supply Chain Financial Service Guidebook, which consists of 5 parts, and also these include a model of green supply chain financial model, the operation procedures, the overview, and also assessment system for the green supply chain management of automobile companies, the white list management system for the core companies, and also some incentive schemes and the restrictions will all be touched upon in this guidebook. And now we are seeing a basic model taking shape. That is how the green finance can be leveraged to serve the automobile companies participated by GAC, Guangzhou Automobile Corporation. And now the core companies themselves can actually identify themselves as green companies or their green projects, and then the expert panel is going to review whether they have complied with the standards and all the monetary policies and also the financial policies supporting green projects can benefit these companies and help them to achieve a higher value. So this is how this model operates. So with the leadership of GAC and now the Dongfeng Nissan and also for Volkswagen, they are all part of this white list. So the automobile companies can file an application to join the white list, and our expert panel is going to review their eligibility. And then the upper and the downstream companies will file the application for funding, and then the GFC is going to look at the white list and determine whether the applicant belong to the white list. And then the financial institutions will try to verify the authenticity of the contracts and eligibility of the companies, and to see what kind of support can be provided to these companies if they comply with the standard. And normally these companies, if they want to join the green supply chain white list, they need to become eligible for these 7 standards, as you can see on the slide. So actually not all the companies in the GBA are eligible. And we discovered that some automobile manufacturers are actually quite strong, but still they haven't become eligible for the 7 standards. And here we have 7 categories and 39 articles in total. These are all the indicators to evaluate whether the automobile manufacturer can become eligible to be included in the white list. And normally they have to score over 90 points. And the standards and also the management approaches is going to be reviewed and modified every year by the authorities and the GFC together. So it can be regarded, that the whitelist can be regarded as a dynamic management system. Now the ICBC Industrial Bank and the Guangzhou Bank have expressed explicitly their intent to join this green supply chain project. And automobile manufacturers, they are quite active in the application as well. As I said, Guangxi Honda, Dongfeng Nissan have already filed their application to join the white list. And for Volkswagen, in its Foshan plant, has also expressed an intent to join the white list. We've also selected the first batch of experts from the expert pool held by China Quality Certification Center, CECEP Consulting, United Equator Environmental Information Technology, and so on and so forth, to join our review panel. And in July this year, at a conference to support the Guangdong automobile supply chain and the green supply chain management, the financial institutions and the local automobile manufacturers have already reached agreement to cooperate. So step by step, up until today, we can say very confidently that this project has been fully implemented. We've conducted 3 surveys, and 31 respondents said they have a funding need that are up to 965 million in total. And we've also conducted field visits to 60 downstream and upstream companies in the automobile industry. So we've also discovered a lot of micro-level green financial requests and demands. And also we have officially talked with 8 upstream companies and financial institutions to see if we can provide them with the funding they need. And the good news is Guangzhou Mingluo was already granted a credit of 200 million RMB. In the next stage, we plan to organize expert panel so that we will review the whitelist applicants and issue the first white list. Also, we are going to extend the scope of this project to other industries like domestic appliance or electronics. We are already discussing this possibility with some key companies. And in the end, we hope to come up with a full version of the green supply chain and financial guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Meng. The next speaker is Mr. Ge Xin'an, Secretary General of Shenzhen GFA, President of China Emissions Exchange Shenzhen, to speak to us. Dear leaders, dear experts, and dear friends, good morning. We are very happy to gather together on this auspicious day of the inaugural of Gba Gfa. On behalf of GFA and the Secretariat of Gba Gfa, I'd like to thank you very much for attending this event. Last March, we held the first working group meeting of Gba Gfa. At the working group's first meeting, we established some of the collaboration projects of green finance in this region. And the previous speaker introduced to us a project, and now I'm going to present to you a project that is undertaken by Shenzhen GFC of solid waste disposal. I think for solid waste disposal, it is an important endeavor that has a bearing of the fundamental interests of people's lives. It's going to be a positive resource for the society if utilized appropriately. Whereas if inappropriately utilized or inappropriately disposed, solid waste will be of adverse impact for the society. Now, if we look at Shenzhen, this is a city that generates a huge amount of solid waste. Therefore, disposal and treatment of solid waste will be of a great impact for the society. Well, Shenzhen, fortunately, is a demonstration city for solid waste treatment. And I believe that with that particular designation, Shenzhen will enjoy a lot of advantages in terms of developing projects related to solid waste treatment. Now, firstly, let's look at the status quo of waste treatment in Guangdong province. In 2018, the hazardous wastes of the province registered 30 billion tons, accounting for an increase of 17.3% year-on-year from 2011 to 2017. In 2018, the general industrial solid waste of Guangdong province registered more than 66 million tons. The overall utilization amount numbered 56 million tons, a percentage of 85% in terms of overall comprehensive utilization ratio of general solid waste of industries in the province. In 2019, the construction waste of the province registered 200 million cubic meters. In Shenzhen and Guangzhou in particular, the overall utilization ratio of those resources is 10%. And these are some of the numbers in Hong Kong and in Macau. All in all, we do have an overall impression of huge amount of solid waste generated in the GBA region. Now, if we look at the synergy and collaboration of those 4 cities in GBA in solid waste disposal, these are some of the weaknesses in terms of synergy and cooperation. Number one, there's a lack of coordination of regulatory departments of government bodies in the Greater Bay Area. For instance, there is a lack of coordination of cross-city transportation of solid waste. There's a lack of regular communication mechanism in place as well. The second weakness is the lack of coordinated planning of solid waste disposal facilities in GBA. When it comes to the solid waste disposal, we haven't been fully coordinated in GBA in terms of specific facilities to dispose and treat different varieties of solid waste. The third weakness is the lack of investment into R&D of solid waste treatment in this region. Therefore, that lead to our technologies, lead to the result that we are lagging behind in terms of the technologies of solid waste disposal in the GBA area in general. The fourth weakness is a lack of market regulation. That led to untransparent price, untimely transportation and collection of solid waste, and unstandardized services. So these are the 4 weaknesses when it comes to solid waste treatment in GBA. Now I'd like to offer some of the suggestions on further coordinating and collaborating in solid waste treatment in this region. Number one is coordination of regulatory bodies so that we can coordinate and communicate at a regular basis. The second recommendation is synergy in facilities and hardware so that we will be pooling together resources and facilities to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of solid waste treatment in this region as a whole. Thirdly is synergy of technology so that we can pull together our resources and expertise to upgrade the technologies related to solid waste treatment. And lastly is market synergy. For instance, we can coordinate in building a trading platform in the province and in the region for solid waste treatment and offer green financial support together for this region. For specific initiatives and actions to be taken, I'd like to offer the following specific actions. Number one is to establish an industrial investment fund for the region as a whole, so that we can establish a financing platform and channel to support the solid waste treatment in GBA. The second specific initiative is to establish a mechanism to marketalize green finance and solid waste trading platform, so that we have a platform and marketplace to offer financial support and to facilitate the trading and transaction related to solid waste treatment and disposal products. And the third initiative is to formulate preferential policies to support green finance for solid waste treatment in this region. Now, I'd like to report to you some of the progress, some of the projects and actions that are in progress. The first project that is already in progress is the Guangdong Provincial Solid Waste Transaction Center. So for this particular platform, it has two sub-platforms. Number one is the trading platform for hazardous waste treatment, and second is the trading platform for utilization of resources. For this platform, it features three market bodies: the businesses that offer treatment services, and businesses that utilize resources in this regard, and businesses that generate solid waste. So the generator, the disposing entities, and resource utilization entities are the three major bodies at the platform. So we offer 4 major services and generate 5 major value addition, improving efficiency, promote the growth of the businesses, bring down the cost, and safeguard the market development and improve regulatory efficiency are the 5 major value addition for this platform. Now, for this platform, it features a smart environment protection platform, the platform that bring together the 3 stakeholders: generators, disposers, and resource utilization bodies. When it comes to the green finance as a support of the solid waste treatment and trading platform, we have government bodies, financial institutions, banking sectors, as well as green guarantee service providers to offer green financial products to support this trading platform of solid waste. For instance, the businesses can audit, can place their products into auction. So this is a marketplace for them to auction the products for solid waste treatment and services, and offer them a very direct way of communication between the generator and the disposer. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ge. Now we are going to connect to Hong Kong to introduce to us the Hong Kong Green Finance Project. Madam Tracy Wong Harris, Deputy Secretary General of Hong Kong GFA, please. Distinguished Vice Governor Zhang, Vice Mayor Chen, Mr. Sim Chong Pom and Mr. Wang Kam Sing, distinguished leaders, distinguished guests, dear guests, good morning to you all. My name is Tracy Wong Harris. I am with the Hong Kong GFA, and I would like to introduce to you some of the green projects, in particular 2 green projects, where Hong Kong GFA took the lead in carrying out the projects, but the presentation will be in English.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Let's start with a good news that I'm not going to make you suffer my terrible Putonghua in the next 10 minutes. My name is Tracy Wong Harris, Deputy Secretary General of the Hong Kong Green Finance Associations. I'm leading the Greater Bay Area Green Building Project, which is a collaboration between the newly launched GBA Green Finance Alliance and the Hong Kong 2050 is Now platforms. There are two main reasons why we are driving the green building project for the Greater Bay Area. First, with the backdrop of the Paris Agreement calling for global actions to become carbon neutral, which China is a signatory. Both China and Hong Kong need to aggressively decarbonize urgently, and the building sector is one of the biggest carbon emitters in the GBA. Secondly, green building sector presents the biggest green investment opportunity. The IFC estimate an additional $18 trillion investment is required in the green building sector in APAC alone between now and 2030. Now, let's take a look at the carbon emission situations in one of the GBA cities. Take Hong Kong as an example. Electricity accounts for 70% of the total carbon emissions in Hong Kong, of which 90% is from buildings. 2/3 from commercial, 1/3 from residential. According to the latest deep decarbonization report from the Hong Kong 2050 is now, Hong Kong building sector needs to reduce 11 million tons of CO2 in order to achieve net zero by 2050. This is not accounting for any embodied carbon from building constructions, which is about 13%. So the green building project has two simple goals. One is to help the Greater Bay Area to decarbonize. Second is to maximize the green investment opportunity in the building sector. Here are the objectives that we set out to do for the green building projects. First, to identify barriers and policy gaps, what is preventing the GBA city from becoming the world-class green cities. To analyze the energy efficiency component of the local green building certification scheme in Hong Kong and China, and benchmark to the other global standards. To design effective green and sustainable financing and policy solutions to scale up green building sectors in the GBA. And we must engage both public and private sector to conduct proof of concept. Here are some of the potential solutions: sustainability-linked product, an increasingly popular green finance product that allow one to set clear sustainability target. For example, 30% energy efficiency improvement for office building from retrofitting. Secondly, digital green bank, leveraging blockchain technology from underwriting green loans to securitization. I will share more in the upcoming slides. Green mortgage market to drive residential green building demand from homeowner. Allow carbon trading, property tax for the building sector in the GBA to speed up the decarbonization process. Enhance building certification, current incentive to tie to energy efficiency improvements. In the next few slides, I want to provide an update on what the green building project has been working on in the past few months and who are some of the organizations we are working with. As part of the research, we are benchmarking 8 green building certifications, including our local standard China 3 Stars and Hong Kong BIM Plus, together with BREEAM from the UK, EDGE from the IFC, Green Star and Neighbours from Australia, Green Mark from Singapore, and LEED from the US. We are doing a deep dive into looking at the overall energy aspect, energy saving requirements, renewable energy requirements of these certifications, also the local incentive and regulations, ongoing energy performance monitoring, etc. As part of the proof of concept mentioned earlier, we are looking at digital green bank as one of the potential solutions to scale up green building market. You can think of this as a combination of a digital bank and a green bank. The idea is to leverage blockchain technology to issue green loans to finance projects that can achieve certain carbon reduction during the life cycle of the buildings, and eventually to securitize underlying asset into green asset-backed security, like Dr. Mam mentioned earlier, to sell to longer-dated investor, like the insurance and pension funds. The blockchain structure will allow green financing to be faster, cheaper, and more transparent, which is a key for preventing greenwash. The digital green bank concept will be the first of its kind, a gateway to scale up the green building industry in the GBA and beyond. Here are some of the important organizations we are working with in driving the green building project, including leading financial institutions, environmental consultancy firms, law firm, green building certification body, and property developer. I want to take this opportunity to say a big thank you for all of them working with us driving the green building projects. In terms of the next step, we expect to issue the first research report at the upcoming Hong Kong Green Finance Association Annual Forum in November, so do watch this space, followed by announcements of the pilot project in the first quarter next year. Thank you all for listening, and a special thank you for Guangzhou and Shenzhen's Municipal Financial Regulatory Bureaus for hosting today's Gba Gfa Inaugural launch, and congratulations to the four organizers: Green Finance Committee of Guangdong Society for Finance and Banking, Green Finance Committee of Financial Society of Shenzhen's Special Economic Zone, Hong Kong Green Finance Association, the Macau Association of Bank, for establishing such meaningful platform to fast-track green finance in the Greater Bay Area. If you would like to find out more or be part of the green building project, please feel free to reach out to me. 如果你们想了解
If you want to know more about this green building project, please contact me. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Huang. And the next speaker is Ben McQuell, Vice President and Special Advisor to Chairman of Hong Kong GFA. He's going to tell us another green project of Hong Kong.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first echo Tracy's appreciation of our distinguished guests, our hosts and supporters of the GBA Green Finance Alliance. Let me also congratulate the Alliance for today's launch and express my pleasure at having the opportunity to contribute to this very important initiative. In Shenzhen in January, I introduced the blockchain solar project to the Alliance Planning Committee. Today, I would like to provide a brief recap and update. Next slide, please, Phoebe. The blockchain solar project addresses two challenges. First, in high-density cities such as Hong Kong, there's little open space for solar farms. Solar projects therefore tend to be quite small, and as such, tend to be unbankable using traditional project finance. The second challenge is that there are simply not enough green investment products in the market yet. As such, it's hard for most investors to invest green, even if they want to. And we're looking to try to address this gap through the solar blockchain project. Next slide, please, Phoebe. Next slide, please, Phoebe. Thank you. The blockchain solar project will look to maximize the solar energy potential of Hong Kong through new and innovative funding solutions that we hope will increase renewable energy in Hong Kong and also bring new classes of digital investment products to the market. Next slide, please. In this slide, there's a brief explanation of how the concept works. There are many potential variations to the methodology, but in its simplest form, we are looking to securitize the revenue generated by the solar panels in the form of a digital investment or security token, which are then sold into the market as a means to refinance the project, thereby releasing capital for deployment in new projects. In Hong Kong, revenue from solar derives from the feed-in tariff scheme that was introduced in 2018, but the concept and the methodology works equally well with PPA, power purchase agreement projects. Next slide, please. This slide explains some of the characteristics of the new asset class that we hope to introduce to support the acceleration of renewable energy in Hong Kong and other high-density cities in GBA. They will be digital assets or security tokens and will be issued and exist on blockchain technology. Earlier this morning, Dr. Ma talked about ABS in his keynote, and we are looking to pilot digital ABS where the underlier is solar power revenue. Next slide, please, Phoebe. There are many potential benefits of this pilot project, and this slide sets out some of them. Firstly, we're looking to improve the amount of renewable energy in the GBA energy mix, starting with Hong Kong. We're looking to exceed renewable energy targets and expectations. We think the potential for renewable energy, even in high-density cities such as Hong Kong, is far greater than the estimations suggest. We intend to do this by promoting capital-efficient investment in renewable energy using private sector funds to provide consumer choice and green investment opportunities, as well as the possibility of community ownership too. Importantly, this concept is scalable. It's scalable within the GBA. It's also scalable in that it could apply equally efficiently and effectively to other green energy projects, not just solar. In fact, it could apply to any revenue generating green projects. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of the big picture, we're somewhere currently between phase 1 and phase 2, primarily working on the proof of concepts. The ultimate goal, however, is to see solar-backed digital ABS being bought and sold on a regulated market platform along with other environmental digital assets. Okay, next slide, please. As mentioned, we're still working on the proof of concept, focusing on Hong Kong pilots. I think fair to say that progress has been a lot slower this year than we had hoped for obvious reasons. And the key to this particular project remains finding asset owners willing to work with us, willing to develop solar ABS products from their renewable energy projects. We are in discussions with a number of public and private asset owners in Hong Kong, as well as some other initiatives, such as the recently launched Sustainable Schools Initiative in Hong Kong. I'm optimistic that following the formal launch of the Gba Gfa, that we'll be able to accelerate progress, and then I'm hopeful that sometime during the first half of 2021, we'll be able to announce our first successful pilot. Next slide, please, Phoebe. The success of this blockchain solar project will ultimately depend on the support and participation of many partners. And this slide demonstrates just how many stakeholders there are, even for a small pilot project. Okay, asset owners, we need developers, funding partners, the tech, distribution, legal, and as well, of course, asset owners. Okay, next step, please. Next step. Next slide, please, Phoebe. Okay. With the support and the convening power of Gba Gfa, I believe this blockchain solar project will be successful. And this slide shows some of the areas where the support of the Alliance can make a big difference. Next slide, please, Phoebe. I conclude my presentation with a picture to demonstrate what's possible. This actually doesn't exist yet, but I'm hopeful that it will soon, and that by the time we next meet, I can report to you on its progress. If you or anybody have questions or ideas or suggestions relevant to the solar blockchain project, I welcome all comments and input. So please contact me or Tracy at Hong Kong Green Finance Association or Dr. Mara, of course. And so this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to meeting again, hopefully in person next time, sometime soon. Thank you. 谢谢.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben Macau. Now we are going to connect to Macau, Mr. Sikao IP, Chairman of Macau Association of Banks, please. Distinguished leaders in Hong Kong, friends in Hong Kong, Macau, and Guangzhou, good noon to you all. It is the great pleasure of Macau Association of Banks to be one of the founding members of Gba Gfa and attend today's meeting. The Macau Association of Banks attaches great importance to the inaugural meeting. There are a large group of members of Macau Association of Banks who are present, who attend this inaugural meeting via various ways. Well, after responding to the 5-year development plan of the central government, in particular, after responding rigorously to the central government's call of building green economy, Macau has been very vigorously engaged in building its green finance market and products. I think we know that in the outline development plan of Guangdong-Hong Kong Macau Greater Bay Area that was formulated in 2015, the green development has been one of the important targets of the outline development plan of GBA. Therefore, we need to build GBA while preserving and protecting the ecological development and realize a green economic development pattern. So I'd like to introduce to you some of the initiatives and actions taken by Macau to facilitate the development of green economy. Firstly, I would introduce to you how Macau promote the green finance development, and secondly, some of the achievements of green finance development by Macau Association of Banks and the entire banking sector in Macau. And thirdly, some of the innovations that we try to tap into in issuing green bonds in Macau. Now, firstly, some of the information on how Macau facilitates the green finance development. We formulated the initiative on promoting the green finance development of Macau with the concerted efforts of various stakeholders. And this was an initiative that was signed by Macau MA, Macau Environmental Protection Bureau, and the Macau Association of Banks. With the issuance of this document, it specifically outlined the future target of green finance development in Macau. Number one is to embed the green finance development as an idea and concept into the long-term planning of the society's development, so that we can further enhance the awareness of environmental protection and the awareness and recognition as well as engagement of various stakeholders in building a green economy and green finance. The second major content of this document is to encourage a highly diversified innovation and product portfolio of green financial products to further speed up the standard formulation and standardization of products and services to facilitate third-party certification so that the above-mentioned initiatives can be very well supported. Thirdly is to speed up the cultivation of financial talents, especially talents that have expertise in green financial businesses and services. So to respond to the three major cause or major content of the initiative, Macau government has been very much supportive and offer us a lot of help and guidance so that we can mobilize various stakeholders and resources to realize the targets that are outlined in the initiative of building a green financial sector in Macau. Now, second part of my presentation will be focusing on some of the achievements and deliverables for the green finance development, especially in the banking sector of Macau. For instance, the Bank of China Macau branch successfully issued 3 currency green bonds in 3 currencies with a total value of 7 billion RMB. And these green bonds issued by Bank of China in Macau has been rated as A in S&P standards, A1 in Moody rating, and A in Fitch rating. And this has set up a very good role model for issuance of green bonds in Macau. In addition to that, there are also SOFR, which bonds issued benchmarked against SOFR, as well as other innovative products which have been the first of the kind in Macau. All these innovative initiatives have been very well recognized in the marketplace. The second particular achievement is the Green Finance Framework, which was formulated for projects of power generation, such as hydropower, wind power, and solar power projects. This was an initiative that was carried out by Daifang Bank. The third deliverable is the green bond issued in 2019 by Macau International Bank in Hongqing of Zhuhai. So this is an important product that connects Macau, Hong Kong, and Zhuhai financial institutions in issuing of green bonds. Now, the third part of my presentation will focus on innovations in terms of green bonds. Macau has been very much active in pursuing innovations in its green bonds, and we, number one, try to align it with the general strategy of GBA development. Number two, try to find a diversified way of try to build a green financial platform so as to facilitate and support diversified green products so that we can have more innovations in the green financial products. And all these products will be very well supported by the green financial platform in Macau. Thirdly is to innovate in pricing and issuance mechanism so that we can further benchmark the green bonds issuance with the international practices, such as the pricing mechanism benchmarked against SOFR that I illustrated previously. So these are very good innovations for us to further align the practices in Macau with the international practices. All these will help us to better respond to the risks related to labor transformation and other risk factors. These innovative efforts have set up very good role models for other cities in the region to refer to in their innovations. Other innovative practices, as I illustrated earlier, include the green bonds issued by Bank of China in Macau. The bonds was issued in 3 currencies, and the green bonds issued in US dollars benchmarked against SOFR. So all these have illustrates the specific deliverables of our innovation. For the issuance of green bonds in Macau, there is more that we can tap into. For instance, we should try to better mechanism to safeguard the issuance of innovative green bonds so that it will not only tap into more potentials but also be very well and reasonably cautious with risk control and mitigation. We hope that all these platforms, innovative products of green finance will further speed up the green economic development pattern so that we can better support the real economy in tapping into the potentials in green production, green consumption, so that we will also help to phase out some of the obsolete production capacity. In the future, we believe that we can provide enough liquidity and financing with more innovations in green finance. All these liquidity and financial resources will help the Greater Bay Area to probe for the sustainable development pattern that features low carbon footprint. All these will also facilitate the new strategy formulated by the central government of China, that is to promote economic development with dual circulation both home and abroad. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your introduction, Mr. So Kai. Distinguished guests, that's the end of the inaugural meeting of Gba Gfa. Thank you once again for attending the event. Please move to the second floor for lunch.